You check the weather app before you're even out of bed, already deciding whether the AC can keep up today. Now picture that same sun with no glass, no central air, no walk-in freezer 3 blocks away, and a thermometer that doesn't drop below 40 degrees Celsius for weeks at a time. That was an ordinary Tuesday on the banks of the Nile, 4,000 years before anyone had heard of refrigeration. So how did an entire civilization not just collapse out there?
What did you actually wear when the sun was working against you all day? Not much. And what little Egyptians did wear was engineered, not improvised. Textile remains and tomb paintings show garments cut from finely spun linen, woven so loosely that air moved straight through the fabric, while the pale color bounced sunlight back instead of soaking it in. Every thread had a job. Now picture the synthetic shirt clinging to your back on a 90-degree afternoon. Who actually understood heat better? Where did people go the moment they needed relief? Home. But home wasn't built to impress anyone. It was built to survive. Ordinary houses used mud brick walls that were often close to 1/2 meter thick, with only small, high windows to keep out direct sun and blowing sand. Thick walls, slow heat. That mass absorbed warmth all day and released it gradually overnight, so interiors stayed noticeably cooler than the street outside. You spent hundreds on a smart thermostat. They built one into the wall. So when did anyone actually get work done? Not at noon. Administrative notes from the workers' village of Deir el-Medina, messages scratched onto broken pottery, known as ostraca, record absences and shifting schedules tied to heat and festival days, with labor pushed into the cooler morning and late afternoon hours. The middle of the day was, in effect, mandatory rest. 3,000 years before siesta was a word, it was already a survival strategy. Meanwhile, you push through your 2 p.m. slump with a second coffee and call it willpower. Why did both men and women line their eyes so heavily every single day? It wasn't just style. The thick black coal worn across ancient Egypt is thought to have cut down glare bouncing off the sand, and possibly offered some protection against eye infection in an environment thick with dust and blinding light. One habit doing 2 jobs at once. Your sunglasses only do one of those, and you still leave them in the car half the time.
What did you even drink out there when the river itself could make you sick? The Nile was the source of everything, but untreated water was a real risk, so it was typically boiled, filtered through cloth, or left to settle before drinking. And bread was the other daily staple, baked fresh and handed out as part of a worker's wage alongside grain rations. Bread as fuel, bread as a paycheck. You complain that your water bottle went warm by lunchtime. And what did you do about all that hair in heat like this? Many Egyptians, men and women alike, shaved their heads close and wore wigs instead. Cooler against the scalp, easier to keep free of parasites, and swapped depending on the occasion. Practical first, fashionable second. You're still sweating under a baseball cap because sunscreen on your scalp felt like too much effort. How did anyone even know how bad the heat was about to get, with no phone to check? Shadow clocks, and later water clocks, split daylight into measured intervals, letting overseers plan the heaviest labor for the hours the shadow read as coolest. So what did an ordinary day actually look like? Wake before sunrise, work while the shadow is long, retreat indoors once it isn't, work again as the shadow stretches back out toward evening. Repeat for thousands of years by people who never once got to complain about the heat wave trending on their phone. None of this was luck. And none of it was toughness for its own sake. It was a system. Clothing, architecture, labor schedule, and drink all built around one unbending fact. The sun was not negotiable, so life had to move around it instead. Here's the part that should actually bother you. Ancient Egyptians didn't survive the desert by fighting it. They survived it by rearranging almost everything about daily life. What they wore, when they worked, what they drank, even how they cut their hair, around a heat they had zero power to change. You, on the other hand, have air conditioning, breathable fabric, filtered water on demand, and a fridge in every kitchen, and you still complain about walking to your car. They didn't beat the desert. They just refused to pretend they could ignore it. You have every tool they didn't have, and somehow you're the one who overheats first. So the next time your phone buzzes with a heat warning and your first move is to crank the thermostat, Ask yourself what a Deir el-Medina laborer would think of that reflex. Someone who scheduled an entire civilization's workday around a shadow on the ground, with nothing but linen and mud brick between them and the sun. They didn't have your tools. They had a system. You have both, and you still haven't figured out what to do with either one when the power goes out for.